Hello, everyone. My name is Spencer, and I graduated at Art Center in 2008 in the product design department. And when I was a student there, I was always wanting to make all my own projects real. I didn't want to just make the model, but I wanted to actually use the model or make the device actually work. And one of the projects that I had for one of my classes was to make a waterproof and sustainable backpack. And essentially, I was able to make that happen, and this is kind of a presentation of how this kind of idea formed and where it started, and then I have another keynote presentation which shows like where we're at now. And usually when I go and like speak or talk to students or classes or whatever, I also show what's next. But these are just the first two presentations of where we started and where we're at now. So essentially, I was in a class with Norm Sherman, and we were going to one of the best teachers ever, by the way. And essentially, we go to all these different museums and he's sketching all the vehicles. And so we went to the American Military Museum in Rosemead, and I was just sketching all these like vintage, American like warcraft vehicles essentially, and just super stoked about all the design details, the functionality, the materials. And we happened upon a Humvee. And at the time I was wanting to make a waterproof, sustainable backpack. And I couldn't figure out like what material to use and how it would work. And essentially when I saw this was the catalyst for that idea. I saw the material on the back of the truck and was instantly inspired. And so upon further looking at it further, I realized that there's all these amazing buckles. The material is has a wind shear of 80 miles per hour on the freeway. It can hold a ton of snow on it without breaking, and it's completely waterproof and indestructible. So I basically convinced the curator of the museum at the time to give me a tarp. It took some this guy was an old like war vet type of guy, so it was kind of difficult to kind of break him in. But after some free Jamba Juices and stuff like that, basically I got this like 18-foot military truck tarp. So I unfolded it on my lawn, and it's a huge, heavy, dirty, stinky piece of material, and so I became really intimate with the material, and I was trying to figure out like how I could make something cool out of this. And so I started cutting out the material and like wearing it and seeing how it would fit on my body. At the time, I had a class with a teacher named Tyler Garland, and when he was in school, he was classmates with a guy, Bobby Chang. And Bobby Chang is one of the co-founders of InCase. And so I said, hey, Tyler, like, I want to learn how to make a backpack. Who can I talk to? And he said, oh, my roommate at Art Center is Bobby Chang, so you need to talk to him. So I called Bobby Chang, founder of InCase. These guys are amazing, definitely my heroes. And essentially he said, if you want to learn how to make a bag, you got to make it yourself. You got to buy a sewing machine. I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm a designer. I just design it and hand it off to someone else. I don't make it. He's like, well, I'm not going to teach you that. If you want to learn, you have to do it. So I said, okay. I spent $1,500 on an industrial Juki walking foot sewing machine, and essentially, went at it. I had never sewn before. The sewing machine arrived. I didn't even know how to like thread the threads through the bobbin. It was really a new experience. And so I just kind of like, spent my nights trying to figure this thing out. And and essentially, I got into it. So I started finding like really cool zippers, like waterproof zippers. I found like all these like really cool buckles, webbing, like hardware that's like patented military spec hardware that's used for like jumping out of airplanes. Kind of like the more expensive stuff. And then I got into figuring out how I can cut the tarp up in an interesting way in order to strategically use the material so it wasn't going to I was going to waste fabric, because essentially this stuff is valuable and expensive. And so in not too long I had my first messenger bag that I made myself, completely myself. I even silkscreened the logo on the labels, and there was something kind of extraordinary about like just having made something yourself. You conceive the idea, you sketch it out, you made it bad, like three terrible ones, and then like the fourth one's like really good. You're like, okay, cool, there's something about this. And so the next step was to now figure it out on another level. So I started getting labels made, woven labels made. I got all the buckles and hardware sourced. I designed and developed our own zinc die cast wall mount hub, so you can hang the bag on the wall, because I like to be kind of organized. Letterpress labels that were individually numbered. I even went to a military place and typed my own dog tags on a typewriter essentially. And so I just kind of got into it with all the fun stuff. And then I started figuring out, I'm not going to wash this material anymore because it's taking way too long for me to scrub it myself. So I found an industrial washing facility where they would wash all the tarps for me. And then, so this is still while I'm still in school. So I had a friend of mine who's a photographer. And now that we had kind of some of the products figured out, I was like, okay, now we need a photo shoot. So I got in touch with my friend Kevin, and we started, over in and out, kind of trying to figure out, all right, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this photo shoot? What's the style of the brand going to be and everything? And once we figured that out, we then threw free Jamba Juice again, convinced the guy at the museum to let us shoot at the museum, which normally would cost $1,500, $2,000, but he was nice enough to let us do that for free. We got a whole bunch of clothes rented from Barney's, just bought them and then returned them, so that didn't cost anything. Our friends were photographers, our friends were models on Levi's campaigns, and essentially we just kind of were winging it as friends, just kind of making a cool experience. And so at the end of the day, we had a pretty awesome photo shoot, and then I got my friend Lex, who's a filmmaker, so we spent a lot of time figuring out how to what type of film would be really cool to support this. And there's that dog tag machine. I was kind of typing all the dog tags, and that was a part of the brand at the beginning. And so when I launched the company, essentially it was a student project. It was at the senior show, so I launched a whole collection of bags, and essentially this is